Hi, welcome back to the Blender tutorial. Today we're going to see the edit mode. So the edit mode allows you to edit the vertices, edges and faces of a mesh. To access it, you can press tab and then you are in edit mode. You can press tab to get back to object mode. You can see which mode you're in the top left corner. With this drop down, you can also switch there from edit mode to object mode. You can edit multiple objects at the same time. So if you select a couple objects in object mode and press tab, you have access to two objects at the same time without merging them, which is pretty useful. So once you are in edit mode, by pressing 1, 2 or 3, you can switch to vertex, edge or face mode. You can see in the top left there, when I press 1, 2 or 3, that we switch between the three modes. When I select a couple faces, if I press 1 to get to vertex mode, it's going to automatically convert the selection from face mode to edge mode. Vertex mode, sorry. So, once we have that down, we can look into the basic operations we can do in edit mode. One of the most important actions is extrude. So extrude works with E, like extrude. Then you can press E, and it's going to extrude in the direction of the face normal. So you can extrude that way. And then you can Ctrl-Z to cancel that. So this is very useful. You can also, if you have multiple faces and you extrude, it's going to extrude in a like general direction. But if you want to extrude along the normals of each face, you can press Alt-E for the special extrudes and extrude face along normals. And this is going to push along the normals of the faces, and you just have to check offset even there to make sure the offset stays even in terms of width. So this is pretty useful. If you have a couple of faces there, you can Alt-E and extrude face along normals that way. You can also repeat the last action with Shift-R. So once we got that down, we have the insets. Let me just delete those with delete key, and then we're on. So inset. The inset is accessible with I and allows you to inset that way. There's a couple options you can use. Yeah, you can do depth, so you can inset and push at the same time, which is pretty useful. You can also tick individual, which makes an individual inset in each face. This is also accessible if you press I and you press I again, it's going to switch to individual. All those shortcuts, like the double I, is accessible on this bar at the bottom. You're going to see something appear once I inset. If I inset, you see, there's a couple of shortcuts that appear, like there. I can't really point my mouse there, but you can see just at the bottom of this. There's individual, boundary, outset, control. You can explore those options. They're pretty useful. So this is it for the inset. You can also add edge loops with Ctrl R. So I can add an edge loop that way. I can click and then I can slide it. It's a two-part action, which is very uncommon for Blender, but it's called loop cut and slide. So first you loop cut and then you slide. If you don't want to slide, you can just right click to confirm and make it stay in place. You can also have a couple more by just scrolling with the wheel, and then you can have more cuts that way. And then you can also slide them or not slide them by just right clicking to cancel the second action. And then that should be good for the loop cut. Then you have also the slide command. So if you if you take one edge and you double tap J, you can just slide it that way. See? You can just slide it along the existing topology. It's pretty useful. It works with vertices too. You can just slide there. One really useful thing with the slide command is that if I want to go further, like if I want to push it that way along this line, I have to double tap J, and then once I'm locked in one axis, I can press C and just push it further that way. It's pretty useful. For instance, I want to push it that way. I can just double tap J and then press C and just move it along the existing edge axis. Then we have the bevel. So the bevel, let's start with a cube. It's going to be simpler. Reset the camera with numpad dot. And then with bevel, I can press Ctrl B to do a bevel. I can also, with the mouse wheel, just add segments to my curve, to my bevel. I can also press P and make a bevel that goes inwards. As always, you can always go there in the little menu, or if you clicked and deselected, you can just press F9 to get your last action, and you can change the shape there. 0.5 is going to be the standard bevel, and I think 0.1 is the curved inwards bevel. If you go full there, it's going to make you some sharp stuff when you have an even number, which could be useful to add like support loops. The bevel is really powerful, but be mindful that if you change any option like we did for the shape, it's going to take this as the default one. So be sure to reset it by putting 0.5 there, so you have a standard bevel there. You can also go in custom mode there to change the shape of the bevel. So you have presets, and you can have, for instance, a cornice molding. If I increase the segments, you can see this is pretty useful to kit bash ornaments, for instance, and have trims in an easy to understand way. You can also change this by just moving points of the curve that way. So this is it for the bevel. Then you are going to have the knife tool. So with K, you got the knife, and then you can just join vertices that way. This is pretty useful. When I knife, if I press C, it's gonna go through the mesh, and I'm gonna have a cut along the mesh. If I don't press C, it's just gonna stop in my viewport. Personally, I prefer when I want to join stuff to just press J, and it's gonna do a cut with the knife tool along those lines, and it's gonna be easier. If you want to, for instance, do this, you can't really do it everywhere, but if I do this, for instance, you can see I have a cut that goes sideways there, and it's all connected. Most of the actions also work on edge or vertex mode, so you can extrude vertices like that way. You can like do pretty complex stuff with this. This is a blessing and a curse because you can break meshes that way. You can make stuff that would not be allowed in other software. Well, I can just delete those. But it means you can also take an edge and just extrude it and then just do whatever you want. You can press F also to create an edge or a face depending on what you have selected. And then you can have complex forms pretty easily. So, one pretty useful command too is Alt S. Alt S pushes, inflate something along the direction, like the Alt E extrude, but just with movement without extruding anything. It's pretty useful. Then you have soft selection. So soft selection, which is called proportional editing in Blender, you can activate there. I'm gonna use Suzanne for this. If I press O, it's going to toggle this at the top, okay? So if I do this, whenever I move anything, for instance, now there's a circle that appears. This circle can be changed by just scrolling the mouse wheel. This allows me to, for instance, do soft selection, like the move tool in ZBrush. You can go crazy with this. It's pretty useful. You can even use it with rotate, for instance, to have like some and double R to twist something. So you can have like really complex shapes very easily that way. It's a very useful tool. And then we also have the bridge edge loops. So bridge edge loops, for instance, if we have, let's say we have this, we will learn how to select an edge loop just after. If we have this that is deleted, I can take this and this with alt click. We will see this shortcut just after in the advanced selection video. I can just right click bridge edge loops. So this is pretty standard, but the good thing is if you have something like this, let's remember to turn off the soft selection. I can just rotate this and have complex connections. For instance, if I just bridge edge loops there and add cuts, it's going to do a smooth interpolation between the two shapes. This is very useful for doing cables. We also see the curve mode, but this is pretty useful. You can also change the smoothness just to adjust how it interpolates between the two paths. Can be really useful. You can even change from a square shape to a circle shape and then have like some smooth transition between the two, which can be hard to model manually either way, otherwise. It can happen also that you have multiple sub-objects. So for instance, if I have those two objects, they are in the same objects because I duplicated them inside the edit mode. I did not duplicate them in the object mode that way, where you have two different objects. So once I have this, I might want to separate this in another mesh. So I can just select my mesh, and we will learn how to select the whole mesh in the next video. But I can just box select for now and press P like part. And then I can separate selection. And then you have, in object mode, you have two different objects. If I want to join, for instance, Suzanne with this tube, I take Suzanne, I take the tube, and I press Ctrl J, like join. And then you have a single object. Ctrl J. And then you have a single object composed of two sub-objects. And this is it for the base edit mode. Then we'll get to advanced selection and the 3D cursor and snapping.